everybody. Welcome to the 59th episode of the Manor Podcast. I'm your co-host, Roger Bodee, joined as always with my best friend and other co-host, Michael Hamilton. Michael, why does LSS hate us personally and not only buff the heroes that we want to make them broken all the time? And clearly, after Brian came on our podcast, he emergency errataed all of the Boltyn cards and said that Boltyn can't be good because I hate Roger now. Why did that happen?
Yeah, that's not what happened.
That's not what happened?
No.
Oh.
I think LSS actually, I was like, maybe LSS doesn't like us. They gave us both a spoiler card. That's pretty cool. We got 2 spoiler cards.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's twice as many as last time. And our spoiler cards were like sick, right?
Yeah, I think I got like one of the best Boltyn cards in the set. So thank you, Alex. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I think I got a pretty powerful Runeblade card. It's definitely going to be very good in Viscerai. I think it'll be good in Vynnset, though the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah, the jury's still out in Vynnset. She's a tough cookie to crack, hey?
Yeah. That she is.
I guess, do we just jump right into it then and just talk about Vynnset from the new Dusk Till Dawn set? Vynnset,
sure.
Dusk Till Dawn set?
Sure. So Vynnset's ability of banishing a card at start of turn, you get 1 rune chant. You banish ideally one of these rune gate cards, and then you have more rune chants. You can play it for free. I think like the fail state of like banishing a 2-cost rune gate card, making 1 rune chant, and then pitching a full blue to activate grasp, and then playing the rune gate card. That's like a 2-card 8, which isn't it's not a bad floor for a turn. That's still a wounded bowl. But you need to be able to do reasonably better than that on your big turns, or have either reasonably better than that or have some form of like disruption, which it doesn't have any disruption for the most part. The CNC one is disruption, the one that vanishes their arsenal. But other than that.
And card from hand. There's the one that's card from hand.
Yeah, sorry, that's not a 2-cost rune gate though. So like,
I guess you have 4 cost and a 3 cost. The 2-cost one.
Oh, the CNC is a 3-cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think like we're still trying to figure out how to build the deck to do things that are better than that. Like I think an easy card that is very good is the aura that makes a rune chant at the start of your turn, because then you don't have to pitch a blue to activate grasp. You'll have 1 rune chant from that, plus 1 rune chant from Vynnset's ability to easily play the 2 costs for a single card, which means you can use 3 cards defensively. Great. Or you can use 2 cards defensively and arsenal your last card, or play a non-attack action like the, oh gosh, what was the name of my card? I already forgot. Runic something.
It's a Runic R. I remember that much. Not Runic Reclamation. Runic Reckoning, yeah, because you Runic Reckoning into Runic Reclamation, and then all the auras go bye-bye.
Yeah, so I think having cards that are flexible that can block 3 or be worth 3 power on an offensive turn seems like a reasonable spot for like this defensive version of Vynnset. But the problem with the defensive version is, how do you really maximize the hands that don't have the 2-cost rune gate cards? So there's the 3-cost that's quite good. The yellow that if they took damage, it vanishes their arsenal. That card's very good.
Lost life, not take damage.
Okay, you're right. The 4-cost blue that banishes a card from their hand is quite good as well. And then also just like having 9 2-cost red rune gate effects, that's not enough like proactive things to be doing during your turn. So you have those 9, and then you have to put in some other reds into your deck, some other cards that you want to banish to Vynnset's ability. Otherwise, you just like are going to be banishing real cards for 1 rune chant, which can't do that. You're not going to win if you're doing that. So basically figuring out what else you can do with the deck is kind of the next steps the way I see it. What do you think?
So I think a play pattern that came up occasionally, but I don't think our team has been like utilizing heavily, which is just banishing a card, making a rune chant, and then playing like a different setup card. Like what's the name of that aura again that like makes a rune chant at the start of your turn?
Gosh.
Let me pull up
a Runeblood Incantation.
Runeblood Incantation, thank you. Yeah, playing a Runeblood Incantation, and or even something like a Read the Runes. There's that other card that I think is interesting from Dynasty. That's just it's a 1-cost aura at the beginning of your turn, destroy it, and make 3 rune chants. And basically, you are giving up that 1 to 2 life for keeping the cards in blood debt, but in exchange, you're kind of doing the Lexi thing of threatening to play like 6 to 7 cards hands. Like, you're not going as crazy as Chain, obviously, where he would just banish every card off the top of his deck and play like 20 card hands sometimes. But I think the ability to have this pseudo uninteractable, there's some light cards that flip cards face down, but for the most part, uninteractable zone to like keep the source of card advantage at the cost of like 1 to 2 life a turn. I think that could be pretty powerful, and I think maybe she might be more of kind of a setup based deck more so than like the straight like value based engine kind of a thing. And the roommate mechanic kind of speaks to that, right? Because it's asking you to set up rune chants, very specifically have this alternative resource going on in order to play these cards for free. So that's kind of the direction I see Vynnset going. But, on the other end of the spectrum still, though, you can still kind of stuff your deck kind of built with these effects like Ghostly Touch and just kind of try to play more of these mid-range tempo-y value Runeblade hands that we're accustomed to, just like playing like a Mob Skies, Shadow Puppetry, or even like Lead the Charges. I think Captain's Calls, classic card, might make a comeback now. And just play your non-attack Rosetta Thorn. We've seen that play pattern come up time and time again, and you just get that rune chant for free from Vynnset's ability. So there's kind of a couple different ways you can take it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think one thing that is really important to solve with Vynnset playing like 5, 6, 7 card hands is you really have to figure out how you're going to get those extra action points to use those cards, because like a lot of her cards don't naturally have go again. There's one Runegate card that's like 0 for, or it's a 3 cost for 4 with go again, and it has Runegate. But that one doesn't feel like you're getting there on rate. Just spending your 3 rune chance to do 4 damage and have go again. It feels kind of bad, honestly. So I think solving the action point issues, like creepers helps. Creepers is almost certainly a big part of the puzzle, but what are you doing on non-creepers turns, or how are you making your creepers turns impactful enough to warrant being worth taking all that extra damage? And how are you, once you have extra action points, what is your game plan? Are you going back to the classic chain attacks like Ghostly Touch, Void Wraith, Bounding Demigod, Riftbind, etc.? Maybe even Rip Through Reality is a good one.
Yeah, and I think like ideally you're going to want to be playing like the 9 mobs or something like that. Like you're going to be want to play a lot of Malvern Skies that does everything you want. It gives you action points, threatens to make more rune chance. It's great. You have Shadow Puppetry. You, like you said, you have lots of tricks that are going on with Spellbound Creepers. I kind of mentioned this earlier with Captain's Call, just because Captain's Call is a good way to, since kind of like the 2 cost like Runegate cards are what we were talking about, are kind of like the cleanest to set up and play and activate and things like that. Red Captain's Call gives things with cost 2 or less go again, or +2. So kind of a flexible card there. And then
I like blue Lead the Charge as well for similar reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's always the classic last blood deck cards. I'm trying to think of the ones that give it costs 3 Steeping Shadows, where that card gives the next Rune Blade or Shadow action +1 and go again. That costs 2 or less. So I think the 2 is kind of the focus, with kind of like these the 3 or 4 with their just really powerful effects are kind of the exception to that rule, though. But who knows? I could be completely wrong, and there could be a third option that's like put a million Seas of Agony in your deck and play a giant Riftbind. I don't know. There could be there's lots of different options to take it.
Yeah, it's really slow. One other card that we didn't talk about is Art of War, and that could pretty cleanly go in the deck as it banishes cards, gives go again. It's kind of solving some of the problems. Like, you don't even need a setup turn anymore if you just like banish a card to Vynnset, banish a card to Art of War. Suddenly, boom, you're pretty. You get to play 2 cards from Blood Debt, and yeah. So we'll see. I I don't exactly know what the right way to build her is, but it seems like she's capable of doing pretty powerful things, like her bad turns being wounded bowls. If you have those 2 cost rune gates, maybe those aren't her bad turns, but if those end up being like the floor of her turns, I think we're gonna have a pretty strong hero on our hands.
Yeah. I will say the last point about Vynnset, though, that I've came across in just kind of like my limited sample size against her is once she's on the back foot and she's forced to block a lot, she becomes very bad very quickly. Like in endgame situations where she's having to block with, since she has the ability where she has to banish a card out of her hand, if she's like forced to block with 3 cards and she just has this one awkward card left over, she has to banish it. So there's just some awkward tensions and just kind of like her inherent design where I think that's kind of also why like I'm shying away from kind of the setup based decks a little bit and maybe trying to focus on more of like the aggressive builds, kind of like an all gas, no breaks kind of idea, but using like Kara and a Husk to kind of shore that up maybe. Yeah, it's just a kind of an awkward pain point of like her just fundamental hero design though.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So the last thing to talk about is her, I guess she has like multiple choices for gear setup. She has her new book that you can banish to get an elegance token.
Elegance, yeah.
Figuring out how you want to use that, or if you want to just go and use Rosetta Thorn, because Rosetta Thorn is such a really powerful
Eloquence.
weapon.
You were right the first time. It's not elegance, it's eloquence. I looked at it just to be safe.
Okay. Man, we're butchering a lot today. Oops. But the eloquence token, figuring out good efficient ways to use that also could be a pretty important part of solving the hero, because if you're going to use the book, then you really want to make sure you're getting value out of that ability. Alternatively, maybe it's just better to use Rosetta Thorn. We talked about playing Mauvrion Skies. If you're playing Mauvrion Skies plus cards that cost any amount of resources, it becomes pretty clean to just spend your last resources to swing Rosetta Thorn. Probably the most efficient weapon we've seen. 1 for 4. Still really good. Split damage. Powerful weapon. But yeah, going back to that point that you talked about where when she's like forced to block with 3 cards at the end of the game, there's another hero that used to really have that problem, but I don't think she does anymore. You ready to talk about Levia?
Yeah, teach me about Levia. I still don't know anything about Levia. I don't know anything about demi heroes. I don't know anything about Levia. So teach me. You're educating me as much as our listeners.
Okay, so the biggest change to Levia is this new legendary demi hero card. That's Levia redeemed and a Blasmafet Levia consumed. Both versions of the card, very powerful, and you don't even have to choose. You just get to play both in your deck by putting this in your sideboard because it's a flip card. So basically, both sides have a condition that you have to meet, and then if you meet that condition, you can transform Levia into that hero. When you transform into the demi hero, your life will become their life. You will basically lose your old Levia ability and gain the abilities of these cards. Your life won't change when you turn into Blasmafet, because Blasmafet's condition is you have to take Blood Debt that puts you to 13, and then Blasmafet starts with 13 life. So when you take Blood Debt that puts you to 13, you transform into Blasmafet, and then you're at 13 still. But when you change into Levia Redeemed, it's just an action to transform. And the condition of having 13 Blood Debt cards is actually pretty difficult to meet. But Levia is a hero that could struggle towards the end of the game, where she'd be forced to block with several cards or die because she's at like 2 or 3 life. So you block and then you die to your Blood Debt anyway, which always felt kind of anticlimactic, where you're just like, we're so close. I just needed to block 3 cards, attack with my weapon or something, and then you block 3 cards, do whatever you do, your opponent just blocks it, and then you die to your own Blood Debt. So this new ability to transform into Levia Redeemed means you can block with 3 cards and spend your action point, or even block with 4 cards, spend your action point to transform into Levia Redeemed, go up to 8 life, and either arsenal a card, or if you blocked with all 4 of your cards, do nothing. But the most important thing is Levia Redeemed does not all of her cards lose Blood Debt, so you can't take Blood Debt damage once you transform. And also it flips over all your banished cards when you transform as well, which means all your Blood Debt cards would be face down anyway, so you would not take Blood Debt while they're face down. But the more important part is you don't take Blood Debt anymore anyway. So in the future, when you banish more Blood Debt cards, you never have to worry about taking Blood Debt damage. Notably, that does turn off things like Hexagore or the new 6 cost 13 power thing.
Shaden Death Hydra.
Yeah,
13
yeah, that
power.
one.
Rouse the Ancients. Get in.
Because your cards completely lose Blood Debt. It's not like you don't pay Blood Debt. They just don't have Blood Debt anymore. So Hexagore is going to dome you for 6 if you attack after you transform. Not a great thing. And that thing will dome you for 13, which will just kill you. So, yeah, so that's how Levia's new most important card works. That changing at the end of the game, you can kind of build these like grindy Blood Debt heavy decks without worrying about just dying to your own Blood Debt, because you can either transform into Blasphemous or Levia redeemed at the end of the game.
Interesting. Wow.
Did
they really fix Levia then, or did they fix the Levia redeemed and Blasphemous? These are the questions.
I think every Levia deck, until either She Living Legends or this card gets banned or something, I can't imagine a Levia deck not playing this card. I guess like it's also kind of awkward that it's a legendary, and you basically, it's really hard to play a budget version of Levia now because this card's like kind of fundamentally required to play the hero, which is kind of like the issue we were talking about with Fables a while ago, where you like need these, like, if you don't have this card, you're putting yourself at a pretty huge disadvantage because it's so like,
yeah, it's just one. It's
so
a one
powerful.
legendary for a niche hero for one hero though. I don't think this, like Spirit of Brini is only like $20. I don't think this card will be like greatly expensive. At least I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah, hopefully that's true. I think Spirit had, I guess like Boltyn was still kind of bad when after Spirit came out, so we'll see if Levia is still niche. I think she seems very interesting to build and play now. And there's like a lot of different directions you could take her, between like a deck that's focused on transforming into Blasphemous, a deck that's focused on transforming into Levia Redeemed. You can play like either way, you're going to play a reasonable amount of Blood Debt cards, but you can play like the recursion stuff where you're like trying to bring back like Howl from Beyond, Ghostly Visits, Deep Rooted Evils, and play them from Banished, then rebanish them, then play them from Banished, and so on. You can still just do efficient brute stuff. You can play like Blood Rush Bellow, Claws, Swing Big, a bunch of good brute stuff, and then just like kind of have Blasphemous as a fallback if some turn you're like getting down a little bit and you just aren't going to be able to turn off Blood Debt, or you don't, like, your turn's a lot more efficient if you just don't turn off Blood Debt and turn it into Blasphemous. That's something that will come up a lot. And then once you turn into Blasphemous, if you have like a few Blood Debt cards in Vanish, just being able to play them. I guess I didn't say what Blasphemous does. So when you turn into Blasphemous, once per turn, you can play a Blood Debt card for your Banish zone. And whenever you would pay Blood Debt, instead you just banish cards from the top of your deck, or you banish a card from the top of your deck instead of paying the one life. And then we also don't really know how quickly that'll actually self-mill you out. And if you have like,
they almost turn into a pseudo chain at that point. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I guess that's how they fix Levia, turn her into chain.
Also, any cards you banish once you've transformed into Blasphemous are face down, so you're not gonna like, it's not gonna like fuel itself and kill you really quickly. Where like your first 5 Blood Debt, banish 5 more Blood Debt, and then you next turn you banish 10 more cards. So it's not quite like chain. It's more like once you've put these like X cards with Blood Debt into your banish zone, that's kind of your pool of Blood Debt cards to play for the rest of the game, because anything else that gets banished will be banished face down.
Do you have any new cards to play from banished?
So kind of, there's 1 cost 6 power red. I'm so bad with card names, especially with the new set, and all of Levia card names are just like gruesome stuff that all sound very similar.
Slithering Shadowpede. If it was banished from your hand this turn, it's banished from your hand. You may play it from your banish zone this turn.
So that one you have to banish directly from your hand.
Yeah, and same turn.
But
which we'll get to in a second, banishing from hand, because I have a thing about that, but go ahead.
Blasphemous does give you the ability to play 1 card from your banish zone with Blood Debt each turn. So it doesn't, you don't need that text to be able to to like build up these cards, and then you turn into Plasma and you're like, okay, I'll play this one card. You can very easily block with 3 cards and just play like a 2 for 7 or something with your last card from your banish zone. It's going to be hard to compete with the value that Plasma Fett gets in the end game. I think the main plan once Levia transforms into Plasma Fett is run her out of deck, which is a common line against Chain as well. So,
but it seems much more difficult to do against like a big brute attacks, right? Levia was capable of producing some pretty big numbers, right? It was just about consistency.
Yeah, definitely. So, I don't think I think there still is a reasonable amount of variance in like the damage output of her turns. She can really struggle to get 2 action points. Maybe you run Scabskins, but if you run Scabskins, then you definitely are gonna, or if you're using Scabskins, you're definitely gonna have some consistency question marks. And she can really struggle to use 4-card hands sometimes if you don't have like specifically Dread Screamer. A lot of her other cards aren't great.
No, they fixed her ability to use 4-card hands now, because now she banishes because she's just like Rhinar. She's getting rid of cards from her hand. They did it. They married the 2 brutes.
Okay, so I do think there is a lot going on with Levia. A lot of new stuff that's really powerful. Mostly the hero card. There are some cards that are good, like the 1 for 6 that we talked about. She also got her blues upgraded a reasonable amount. There's a lot of good blues that are just gonna like probably make the deck. There's some that are question marks, but yeah, definitely helped out there. No blue 6s, notably, but some good blue cards.
Crazy. What are the odds?
They're just not doing blue 6s.
And brute. Vynnset over there gets a blue mythic 6-powered attack.
That's majestic, but yeah, that's true.
Majestic, yeah, sure. But whatever the
they're
M symbol is.
They're not giving brutes. Doesn't sound like they're giving brutes any more blue 6s that they don't have to work for. Though she did get a card that says if you've banished a 6-power card this turn, then it has 6 power as a blue. It's a 1 for 6 if you've done that, which is pretty good. 1 point above a critical strike, and it's another blood debt card for your blood debt, and it's a blue, so a blue 1 for 6, pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's fair.
Unfortunately, it's never going to be a 6 when you need a 6 for turning off Levia's blood debt or whatever, because if it's a 6, then you've already banished another 6. So it doesn't make you more consistent, really. It just adds some power once you're doing the thing.
Do you think any of the banish from hand cards are like worth it compared to like the old Levia attacks? Because like the old Levia attacks were good, like banishing a bunch of cards from your graveyard. It was just a question of like getting it. And obviously when you get to the whole brute mechanic of banishing randomly from your hand, you're really constrained on like what your hand can do, because no matter what, it's hard to be efficient because this whole extra card is just being tossed away in order to cast even your first card. So I feel like this is going to be pretty difficult to include these like banished random cards from hand thing, especially when you consider that like, at least when Rhinar does it, you're getting like this form of pseudo evasion and disruption and intimidate, whatever that's worth. And Levia, you're not getting that. There's no like, whenever you banish a card with 6 or more, intimidate. That's not what she does. You're just not dying to blood debt that turn. So I don't know.
So most of the cards are the junky ones that Rhinar doesn't play, or he plays the yellows because he needs like another yellow 6 or whatever. Like you're not putting like red Savage Feast in your deck as Savage Feast, Savage Swing, the 1 for 7 that says discard a random card. It's just like not a playable card. The yellow's fine because you need 6.
Now you have Shade and Swing, which is 1 for 7, banish a card from your hand.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll see any of those. I said Savage Feast when I was trying to talk about Savage Swing. They didn't give us a Savage Feast equivalent, which is the 1 for 6. Discard a card. If it has 6 or more power, you draw a card. I think if we saw that one, we'd probably see that, where it's just like 1 for 6, banish a random card, draw a card. If it's 6 or more power, that's probably good enough. And then we didn't get a Blood Rush Bellow, which is the other like one that you think about when you think about discarding a random card with 6 power and getting a really powerful effect. There's no Blood Rush Bellow equivalent. There's some new blue that banishes your whole hand when you play it, and I think that card will be played
Blood Dripping
blue
Frenzy.
Block 3. Yeah, it's a blue block 3 with a lot of upside, but most of the time you're going to be blocking or pitching it. You're not going to be casting it that often, but sometimes it's just nice that it has that upside that you can cast it when your hand lines up that you want to cast it. Like a 4 blue hand would probably cast it most of the time.
That's fair. And I was about to say, they also did away with the brew cards that don't block, but there's one exception in Slithering Shadowpede, probably one of the more playable ones. So once again, Brute's not looking to block very often.
Yeah, can you say the name of that card again? Slithering
Shadowpede.
Okay. I do think that card kind of gives you an incentive to run the banish random cards from your hand cards, because it's just like being able to play it that turn.
Which one of them has go again?
Is really high upside.
Ram Raider. Okay. So you want to pitch a blue.
The problem is
attack with Ram Raider, banish your Slithering Shadowpede, attack with Slithering Shadowpede. You 3-card 12. It's not bad.
You 3-card 12 and you turn off Blood Debt, which is pretty relevant because the Slithering Shadowpede was a 6 that got banished that turn. So if there are more effects like that or more ways to do turns like that, I think I could see some play from them, but I don't expect, like, in general, the 6 go again that banishes a card from hand is going to be way, way, way worse than Red Dread Screamer, which is just banishing 3 cards from your discarded for 6 go again. So banishing cards from your graveyard is a lot lower of a cost than banishing a random card from your hand. And I think the cards are priced like essentially the same, where like if you look at like any point of the cost curve, it's like the same to banish 3 cards from your graveyard versus banishing a random card from your hand. And banishing 3 random cards from your discard is almost always going to be a lower cost of banishing a card from your hand. So these cards outside of the Slithering Senate, what is it called?
Shadowpede.
Slithering Shadowpede. There's not really any payoffs to banish random cards from your hand. This is the only card that does it, and it's a red majestic. You can only play 3 copies of it. I think there's not enough stuff to get there on that theme. But that said, Levia's old cards are pretty powerful. Her biggest issue was consistency, and the hero flip does a lot to help with that. There's also a couple of new pieces of equipment that are worth talking about. There's the new 6 power weapon that banishes itself after you attack with it. That could be a card that sees play. It helps flip you into Levia redeemed. Because it's a blood debt card. It turns off your blood debt for 1 turn when you're still regular Levia. I could see that seeing play. It's probably not good enough. A weapon that you can only attack with once probably isn't great.
That's a pretty big cost.
Yeah. There's the new hats. The new hat
Spoiled
that Blade
Skull?
Breaks 2.
No, that's a Shadow Brute. No, the one that Blade Breaks
the regular
2.
one, the flesh bag.
Yeah.
The flesh bag hat. Blade Breaks 2
Scowling flesh bag. When it defends,
intimidates when it blocks, so it banishes a random card from their hand. I think that card, like, it really reminds me of Stalagmite. I don't think it's as good as Stalagmite, but Stalagmite was very, very good. And like, if you can even get like a portion of Stalagmite out of your card sometimes, using this against the Briar on her Channel Mount Heroic turn could save you a lot of life. Using this, just like using this against the Pummel, where they have 2 cards left and it's a face-up Pummel. You block with this. They either banish the Pummel or they banish the resource card that was going to pay for the Pummel. Great. They stopping 4 damage, and like you're stopping 4 damage and the on hit, though they are going to be able to arsenal the Pummel for the next turn. But like, they're basically wasting a whole card then when you do that. So that's blocking 2 plus postponing the Pummel for a turn and making them waste a card. So I think there are going to be spots where this card shines, and figuring out how to use it is going to be a very skill testing part of the game, similar to like finding your correct blocks with Stalagmite.
That's fair. Okay, seems sweet. I feel educated now. I feel like I can go main Levia now.
And I guess my biggest regret is that I didn't put some time into like playing with Levia's old cards more. I've been having a lot of fun playing her in Monarch Limited, so we're familiar with a lot of the cards that she plays, because most of the cards that were good before were the commons and rares, so the ones that you would play in draft anyway.
Yeah, but all this transforming talk has given me a hankering to talk about Prism. You ready to talk about some Prism cards?
Yeah, yeah. So first, there's the new Prism, which the ability of when you put a Herald into your soul, you get to go tutor for a Figment. Which
That's very
for a
powerful.
while we were like, "What's a Figment?" It is very powerful. Um, and then you can pay 2 resources. And do you have to banish a card from your soul to transform the Figment? You
Yeah.
do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two resources, banish a card from your soul, transform the Figment into the Angel form. And then these angels are 4/4s with ward 4. So they're very, very difficult to keep around because
And
both
yeah,
they both have 4 health and they have ward, so they die pretty easily. If you take any damage or your opponent can just send a 0 for 4 at them, they get them out of here. Um, but they don't have Phantasm, which is notably different from Dromai's Dragons, and there's no easy way to give them go again. I think one of the angels can give all your angels go again for the turn if you banish a card, but they also cost 2 to attack. So even if you get like 2 angels in play, it's going to cost 2 to attack, and you'll have to banish a card from your soul to get go again, so you can pay another 2 to attack with the other one. I'm sure it'll come up more than 0, but I don't expect it to come up very often where you have 2 angels and you're attacking with both of them.
yeah. So Prism needs a million resources for these days. Like so many things to line up. She needs like the cards to pitch in order to attack with them. She needs the cards in soul to maximize their abilities. She needs even more cards to pitch to give them go again to like do other things. Like this playing the figments themselves and getting the value out of them, I think is where the bulk of where Prism's value is probably going to be spent. And I think you're probably going to play some kind of hybrid between the auras and the figments, but that means I also don't think you're going to be playing Luminaris. I think you're going to be playing Iris. So if you're this resource heavy and this card heavy, I think you want to be a primarily blue based deck as opposed to like blues and yellows, very limited on reds, which isn't uncommon, kind of where the Prism of old wound up. But I think that just the mono Herald Angel plans doesn't really line up to be like a cohesive game plan, especially like we were talking about like Vynnset falling behind and not being able to do anything. If this Prism deck falls behind, she literally does not like actual 0 game actions, not being able to like function as a hero, kind of a
Yeah.
deal.
You talked about a blue and yellow base for the Prism deck, but actually without Luminaris, there's not really an incentive to run the yellows. The legendary figments are all yellows, so like that's like I think 7 or so yellows that you have to run. But outside of that and Herald of Erudition, I think you can be like
Well, Soul
primarily a blue
Shield.
and red deck.
I think you're still playing Soul Shield, right? And then I said some
I'm,
of the old auras, right? And those are all yellow. So like that's why I was saying like just because so many of the cards are nothing but yellow, like I still think
yeah,
whenever you get
I'm
the
not
opportunity to play
sure.
blue for sure.
I'm not sure if Soul Shield will be an auto include the way it used to be because
I think it has to be because like you have just so many these figments don't block. So like including them and the auras, like Soul Shield was a good way to mitigate your hands that don't block very well because you would just be able to pitch one of them and play
yeah,
the Soul Shield.
that's fair. Maybe Soul Shield will still be in the deck. I will admit I have not spent a lot of time on Prism. I think like she doesn't seem that powerful to me, honestly, with how costly everything is and the fact that she starts at 32 life. I think Prism's the hero I'm least interested in out of these 4 heroes.
32 life is very low life. Like that's not a lot of
That's
life.
2 more than Kano.
Yeah. And so I played against a couple test games, Prism, and first game, Travis, our editor, the TNT Manorcast, he was on a heavy Angel and Aura plan, and um, he basically had like a really powerful like first couple turns, and then he ran out of resources, and the game was pretty much over. Like he just had no like long game, and the continued like deck and gameplay requirements of like accruing the resources to like I said, put the cards in soul, attack with the angels, just doesn't leave you any room to like block. So then like everything you're setting up is just immediately getting destroyed and you're taking damage while starting at 32 life. Um and it just didn't seem like the juice was worth the squeeze. The juice was worth the squeeze, focusing solely on the angels. Then he switched into like a more traditional, like old school Prism, the opposite direction. I'll play like I think he had like 6 total figments in his deck, but like a bunch of the old like good auras, all the blue auras, that kind of deal. And I remember he played. I think at one point he had 7 spectral shields on the battlefield plus a piercer reality, and I was like, I'm dead. Like I can't possibly win this game. And then he pitched 1 blue to attack me with 1 spectral shield for 4 and passed. And I was like, oh, I have all the time in the world to clean up these spectral shields. This is no big deal.
Yeah,
and just slowly, and 3 turns later, he had no auras on the battle. I think, no, he kept the Pierce Reality. I never blew the Pierce Reality. He had 1 Pierce Reality on the board, and I was attacking him directly in the face with Via the Vanguard. And I was like, what a difference not having Luminaris makes, man. Like, that's like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And Prism before, like, there was a time when young Prism was kind of like terrorizing the Oldheims of the world. But like Oldheim's gone. Who's her good matchup right now? I think ideally you want to fight against decks that don't have a lot of poppers, because you're really reliant on your heralds hitting now to supercharge your soul. The heralds are just very efficient when they aren't popped, like Wartune Herald 1 for 7. Herald of Protection is a 2 for 7 that when it hits, you get both a card and soul and you gain a life. Basically, you get that Spectral Shield, which is worth a life and sometimes stops on hits. The other heralds all do things. Herald of Erudition, of course, pretty powerful, though a lot worse if it's not getting Go Again for free. So yeah, I think Prism's gonna be like
Icelander. Icelanders are a good matchup. We found it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Iris Prism is extremely good against Icelander, and honestly,
and maybe
I'm
Dorinthia,
not.
because there's just no poppers in Dorinthia either. Like decks that are like super popper, like that are just like they traditionally play like maybe 3 poppers total. I think she could be pretty, just like make sure you have really good equity with your heralds. I think that's her most important thing, is making sure that her heralds are actually like functional cards.
And Dorinthia is also a hero that like struggles against Arclight Sentinel, where you leave Dorinthia with a 5-card hand, play an Arclight Sentinel. Okay, reset her Dawn Blade.
Against the aura heavy build, I will say, like the fear, you're like, I'm gonna activate Tunic. Am I okay? Am I gonna get Arclight Sentinel? And he's like, no response. Is like, okay, Via the Vanguard. And it's like, because if I go Tunic and he goes Arclight Sentinel, I'm sad. I'm just swinging a Naked Raiden at an Arclight Sentinel, and we're wasting a whole turn cycle. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Arclight Sentinel is still a really powerful card. I think Iris of Reality is solid, and the blue auras are still good even if you're on Iris. They're just pretty powerful. We'll see if it's enough for Prism. I've never been a big Prism guy, so maybe the Prism mains out there can solve her. But I don't want to say it right away, but I feel like she might fall a little short this time, and just to kind of like be a hero that's just looking for the metagames that she preys on. When Icelander and Kano are around doing really well, maybe she can have a good Bravo matchup. It wouldn't surprise me if you build her like more traditional auras with Iris. But I don't know if the Angels are, like you said, if the juice is worth the squeeze, but we'll see. Maybe you could still play Angels and just have this extra sync where you leave these figments in play for a long time with no intention of transforming them, and tell your opponents like, okay, I'm leaving you with a 4-card hand.
Maybe Azalea. Why do you think she fares into Azalea? The ward stuff is kind of interesting, and Azalea is not known for going like super wide. So like, if you set up some auras behind some Angels, it kind of feels like a somewhat cohesive game plan, right?
Yeah, I do.
Not a lot of poppers either.
Herald of Erudition is quite good against Azalea. Azalea is not known for her blocking equipment or her poppers. So yeah, there might be hope. There's also the new yellow reinforced lines for heralds. Seems pretty good in a defensive Prism, specifically against Azalea, where you can easily just 2-card block 7. So even through dominate. So we'll see. I also like Arclight Sentinel's pretty good against Azalea too if they're trying to like use pumps. So they might have to go back to like Rabble E-Strike stuff. If Prism is a menace, then Rabble E-Strike does help with that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we'll see. I don't want to rule her out yet. Like I said, I haven't been excited about Prism as the other three heroes. Haven't put nearly as much time into her. I say nearly as much time. I haven't put a lot of time into any of the heroes yet. Everything just came out a couple days ago. But Prism's at the bottom of my list of the 4 heroes to work on.
Same.
All right.
You know who's at the top of my list, though?
Boy.
You know who's at the top of my list? You know who? I was undefeated with, 8-0 reigning champion of Boltyn until we faced Lexi, and we're sad. And but we'll get to that one in a minute too. Boltyn's very good, and I feel like since Twitter is not a great place for nuanced opinions. That being said, there are some huge disappointments in this set as far as like what I'm considering for like Boltyn overall, and because I got my spoiler card, right? V for Valor. It like when I saw it, I was like, whatever. It seems okay. The more I thought about it, and the more I thought about like the play patterns it resolves and things like that, it grew on me more and more. And playing with it, I've been equally impressed with it. But second, I thought about it more and I realized what it signified, and that's it's not an engulfing light. Like you get to pump weapons with this. Like it's a non-attack action that pumps whatever attack you're reacting on, and that can lead to more cohesive warrior game plans because like warriors want to be attacking with their weapons. They have all these attack reactions, weapon buff effects, things like that, and primarily. I still want this card more than anything out of any Flesh and Blood set. It's just Sharpen, Steal with Charge. Sharpen Charge. I don't know. We didn't get that card though. And I made my spoiler video and I was like, ooh, that's it. V for Valor. We never have to attack with Engulfing Light again. No more 2-card, 3 mopey attacks that you have to figure out like, how am I getting my action point to swing my rain afterwards because I don't have Go again. No more of those days. Boy, aren't we glad those days are over? And then I saw the rest of the set. And not only did they give us more 0 for 3 charge cards, they gave us conditional 0 for 3 charge cards. You have to charge a yellow card in order to get their bonus. Not any card, not a light card like Via the Vanguard. Via the Vanguard's requirement to pitch light cards. Like if that was a requirement on these cards, no complaints. My deck's like 95% light cards at this point now, anyways. But they have to be yellows, and for that reason, I immediately wrote off the majestic ones, and I'm continuing to write off the majestic ones. Like their effects are like fine. One is when it hits, you create the Courage Token. Once you put an attack action from your graveyard. And that's Beckoning Light and Spirit War. Beckoning Light puts the cards on top of your deck from your graveyard. And Spirit of War, on hit, attack action, cards make Courage Tokens. Not Raiden. Raiden will not make a Courage Token when it hits while this is on the combat chain. Attack action, cards will make a Courage
This
token.
itself makes one, right? When it hits.
If it hits. But once again, how are you getting an action point? I don't know. You figure that out.
You got Courageous Steel Hand, right? That's a classic.
Sure. However,
your favorite card.
So
Lumina Lance.
Lumina Lance. I don't know how to evaluate that card, but it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. So as much as I hate, continue to hate, and will forever hate the 2-card, 3 charge cards forever, there are some exceptions. First exception, Beaming Bravado, which is 0 cost. It's a 0 for 3, but if you charge a yellow card, it gets +1. So then it becomes a 0 for 4, but it has +1. So then you can use that card you just charged immediately if you want to, in 2-card 7. It's not bad.
Not bad.
And you know when you attack with this and you charge a yellow card, you are going to get an action point. You could have you get to do things after this charge effect. You get to actually utilize Boltyn's effect multiple times across a combat chain and get more value out of it. It's great. I think it's the best new charge card. I think this is on par with Take Flight. And I do not say that lightly. I don't know which one I want to run 9 copies of. I think one of these two should be 9. I still currently have 9 Take Flight just because it has the unconditional charge and unconditional go again. So you don't use a card from Soul for go again. I think it still slightly edges it out. But the fact that it's close is a huge compliment to this card. I love this card. Okay, I'll just keep talking about Boltyn since you don't have anything to say about it. This is now the Roger post. This is another
So I do think I agree this is the best new charge card. And the fact that you can like 2 card 7 with your Boltyn ability turned on. And if you have an extra card in Soul, you can also just give your raid and go again after that. That's just like, that's the dream, right? And then I think this card is probably better than Take Flight, because Take Flight, really, you need that tunic counter, or you need a plan to spend your other 2 resources that you're floating off pitching a
or
blue,
1
or
resource,
pitching a yellow, which is, yeah, I guess you can like Valiant Thrust them or something if you pitch a yellow, which is fine. But
no.
What are you doing with your?
You get to use that 1 resource for Iron Song versus.
Yeah, that's
you
not
pitch
great.
a yellow. It's fine. Iron Song versus is phenomenal with Raiden. I love that card with Raiden. It like, for the fact that it turns Raiden into like 4 value. It's just a 0 for 4 if you've charged, or I guess 1 resource for 4 value on the turn. And since the courage tokens are just like so fundamental to once again ensuring that like whatever you're attacking with has the plus power in order to like get a card from Soul to get go again, courage tokens are insanely impactful in Boltyn. So I think Iron Song versus alone might have been enough to me to consider like Raiden to be like the superior build. But the fact like you have beaming bravados and just like more consistent like tempo game plans, or just a higher floor for like your like Raiden turns, I think kind of speaks volumes to it. And then the last thing we'll talk about as far as Boltyn concerned, then now that we've touched on Iron Song versus, are the bannerets. Bannerets are very good. I was like, who cares about these? Go ahead.
They gave us they gave us cards that are like, we want to charge yellows to be good, and then they gave us some yellow cards that are like, charge us, we're real good to charge.
Please charge us. Do anything with us. Just put us in your soul to charge. But the small flavor fail is like whenever you reveal them on like a Lumina Ascension or something like that, or they get into your soul through other means, you don't get their effects. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. But I don't think Lumina needed to be better. I think Lumina Ascension is the card that didn't need help in Boltyn. I think everything else could use the help, but Lumina Ascension, I feel like it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't need to be better.
Okay, I won't argue with you. But I think not all bannerets are created equally. I think number 1 is Banneret of Courage. Getting that courage token, like I said, because it's the flexibility, the modularity of being able to get go again if you want it by using a card in Soul, but just if you don't want it, you just get the extra power, and just pushing up the extra power, getting just a little bit of extra value out of your charge effects, since they are so bad on rate traditionally, helps. It goes a very long way, and it helps push through like it's a nice combo with like that Take Flight line I just said, where you activate Iron Song versus putting Raiden up to 4. Threatening the courage token hit is a lot different than blocking it for 3. Because if you block it for 3 with a non-attack action, then it's like, oh, okay, I don't get my thing. But once it goes up to 4, it becomes kind of difficult to block with. So Banneret of Courage is my preferred go-to. Copies 1 through 3 bannerets. Then you have Banneret of Gallantry, which gives you a Quicken token, which saves you the card in Soul and gives you the go again. The only thing that's awkward about it is like you're attacking or you just don't need that Quicken token, or you have plenty of Soul anyways, or something like that. Like, it's just not always the most like super useful one, but I still think like overall it's still very, very good. Obviously getting a Quicken token, getting the action points when you need them, since your cards don't usually have go again naturally, very, very good. And that's why I'm also happy to run that one. And I think that's it. I think I'm done on bannerets. I think the other ones are just like whatever.
I think
because the other banneret gives you a Spellbane Aegis. The other one you have to run the legendary chess piece to give plus defense on your turn, and the other two you need to hit in order to gain 1 life or gain 1 resource. And it's like, okay,
so
sure.
Talk to me about the other new legendary equipment, the chess piece. That's legendary, right? Not a majestic.
Yeah, it's legendary. Soulbound Resolve.
Yeah, is that card playable?
I don't know. So I tested my fatigue strategy into Lexi trying to use this card because my big brain was like, oh, Lexi is going to give me frostbites. And as soon as you have a frostbite, playing Sink Below or your defense reactions gets very bad very quickly. So they're going to lead their turn giving you a frostbite. And you're like, aha, I will Soulbound resolve, charge my defense reaction that's now horrible rate, but at least get some damage mitigation out of it as opposed to just rotting in my hand being a red stupid resource card, and we'll be okay. It was not good enough. The game was not anywhere close to me getting to the fatigable range in Lexi. I got destroyed. I think Lexi ended with like 20 life and 16 cards in deck when I was at like -10 to like the pitch deck Rain Razors. It was not a good game plan.
Okay.
That being said, maybe if like you're doing other things with it, I just don't know where it fits. You know, what are your ideas for it?
I think to me it just seems kind of bad because, like, I mean, like it's not bad. It's a 2-block temper equipment. You already had that with Courage of Blade Hold though, and you can always play Courage of Blade Hold in Raiden if you wanted. It doesn't do anything when you activate it, but it still blocks 3. It's still a nice part of nice piece of a fridge, you know. And there are hands that you would definitely be happy to take one of your cards and gain 1 life and put it into your soul. I think that's going to happen less often now, but it's not worth nothing. But the bannerets being chargeable off of it, you can do it, charge a banneret, and then a hand that doesn't have a charge card. Now maybe you've played the banneret that gave you the quicken token. Well, either banneret works there, where your hand becomes functional because you charged this banneret. But a lot of the time when your hand isn't super functional, you could just block with your hand. If they're attacking you, instead of blocking with this fancy chess piece, you could just block with 2 or 3 of your cards and play a 1-card hand, play your Express Lightning, Arsenal something, or something like that. I guess. Yeah. So I don't know. I am suspicious of it. I think especially if you're on Take Flight still, then Tunic looks really good because Tunic into Take Flight into Raiden into whatever is still
or
a really
be the
strong
Vanguard.
Yeah, Tunic B. Yes. So I guess I could see it being correct in really fast matchups where you just want the block 3, and it's slightly better than Courage of Blade Hold when you're on Raiden plan anyway. But yeah, I don't think it's nearly as impactful as the gloves.
Yeah. And we want to talk about another question mark, by the way. It's Prayer Bologna, which is basically like they gave Light Warrior Snot Arcanics. So Prayer Bologna is the non-attack action that blocks 3, costs 1. Your next attack, no matter what, will get +2. So no matter what, you're getting +2 out of this card. Pretty good, and even affects weapons.
1 for 2.
1 for 2. Good, Boltyn. We're doing it. It gives you a reaction point.
Let's go again.
Yeah. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a yellow card, you draw it, and then you get to charge any card out of your hand. But you have to have a yellow card on top of your deck. I think I'm like sub. You don't do. You just get +2. You just reveal your red Take Flight. Okay. You just reveal your red Take Flight, and you attack with your Raiden for 2, and you're like, we did it.
I love 2-card 2s.
I think I did the math, and on average in my Raiden builds, I'm like 75% total light cards. So I'm playing a lot of light cards, and I think I'm like 2 for 7 hitting off this card.
Right. You said 75% light cards, 75% yellows.
Yeah, 75%. Yeah, sorry, 75% yellow cards. Yeah.
You're just not very lucky, are you?
I'm not very lucky, so I don't. So maybe this is like a Michael Hamilton card, not a Roger Bodee card.
So when you do hit with this, you're spending 1 resource and a card to get 2 power and a card in soul, right?
Mhm.
Because you
You
so this
for
is
free off the top of your deck. You get a
yeah,
free
so
charge when it hits.
and it counts as charging a card, right? So you can play this and then
Yes.
play your red take flight, and your take flight will have go again because you charged.
Yeah. So like let's say you even like you flip this, you reveal Lumina Ascension, you draw your card, and then you're like, oh, well, I'll just banish this red take flight from my hand now, play, and
And then
then I
play the
charge for the
Lumina.
turn. So then I can play Lumina, attack you with Raiden for 6, and then attack you card from soul, Raiden for 6. So like even if you hit a power card off of this, like you're fine. You don't have to charge with it.
So
But I
so
guess if it's the
my
only card in your hand, so if you play this on a naked hand, you reveal Lumina. Then you're charging the Lumina. You once you reveal it, it goes into your hand. You must charge.
Mhm. That would be pretty powerful if you didn't have to charge also. Like there would be
Yeah,
times where you just like spend your resource, get your +2 power, and draw a card. That's pretty good.
Mhm.
1
Yeah,
resource for 2 power draw. I guess you're drawing a yellow, but some of Boltyn's yellows are quite strong, like V and Lumina and Beacon. Um, I guess the last thing that goes to my mind is comparing this card to Seek Enlightenment, where Seek Enlightenment, you're at yellow, you're getting +2 power, you're getting conditional, an extra card in your soul. Um, this, when it hits, is reasonably better than Seek Enlightenment because you're getting that charge effect for your turn for Boltyn's ability, and for any of your cards that care about charge. And then it also blocks 3, which is a lot more than blocking 2 from Seek Enlightenment. The reasons it might be, or the reasons it might be worse than Seek Enlightenment is, I guess, missing on this doesn't, like, if you just miss on this, you're just getting the 2 power and you're getting nothing else. So the turns you miss on this, it's spending a card and a resource for 2 points of power is pretty bad. It's like 2 points
yeah.
below rate, but the upside
Seek
is quite
Enlightenment
high.
doesn't hit Raiden as well though. So, but this hits any attack. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I
yeah,
talked about it, charge cards and Boltyn's effect, and also Raiden, of course. So I do think that if your deck supports this, I don't know what number of yellows you need to for it to be good to play this. I think you need to be hitting probably more than 50% of the time, but I don't know exactly what the numbers are. And I guess you can play cards like Ravenous Rabble if you really wanted to check the top card, and then you play Rabble, then you see if it hits, if this would hit. If not, you just Arsenal this. That could be a real line, but I don't know.
I don't know. But
Fantasy
then there's the
maybe.
Fabled. There's a Fabled, which does this, but doesn't charge, but just puts a card directly in your soul, and it's a gem.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the best gem? I know we said this last time about Plague Hive, and that wound up not making much of an impact. But this one seems like it's real good.
So my biggest issue with this one is, and Plague Hive's played in most usury decks, I think. So I think Plague Hive did get there. Maybe not, but and then Rangers, it, most of the
They just
Rangers
don't
don't
hit.
play it, but Rangers have a lot of weird requirements, and they make a bunch of ponder tokens and stuff. But um, I think this, if this just said when you pitch it, you charge the top card of your deck, I think it would be, or even the top card of your deck just goes to your soul. I think it would be. The fact that it's conditional, that your deck has to be so heavily yellow based for this to work, and the times it doesn't work, it's a yellow no block card. I think the best
It's Crack Bobble.
fables, yeah, it's cracked bobble when it doesn't hit, which is quite bad. I think it's just, in my opinion, I would put this below the other gems. I think it's worse than Heart. I think it's worse than Eye, and I think it's worse than, especially worse than Viscerize. It's just the blue that always makes a rune chant, and I think it's also probably worse than Plague Hive. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of putting it at the bottom because it's conditional and it pitches for yellow.
I'm trying it out. We'll see how it goes. Basically, I have like one flex slot in my list in my core 60, and I don't know if I want this or like a Lumina Lance, because I don't think Lumina Lance is an effect you want a lot of either. Just because
Mhm.
Celestial Cataclysm and Beacon of Victory already used like your excess soul pretty heavily. Although we did have that one cool end game where we were at 2, I attacked with a naked Raiden, and you're like, guess I got to block with Tunic.
Yeah, I
Because
think
otherwise you just died of the Lumina Lance.
Beacon of Victory also does like a similar thing where like you can just beacon for 2. Even if you haven't charged, you still get the +2 power rate. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, just Boltyn's pretty scary when you're at 2 life and they have like several cards in soul.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
So
That's one thing that really caught me off guard. That's like another small interaction is just like your spoiler card, V for Victory.
V for Valor. V for Valor.
V for Valor. Yeah, V for Victory when I'm at 2 life and you're attacking me with a Raiden with a V for Valor in play. If you had like a tunic counter, I feel like that is a really rough spot to be against, because if they have a tunic counter and 1 card in hand and V for Valor in play, then this Raiden's basically representing 6 damage, and if you block for 6, they just arsenal their card, save their tunic counter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really powerful.
And V for Valor does so many cool things. It's like your perfect turn 0 play in the deck. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, but you have to spend your whole turn doing it. But like, you were already doing that a bunch. Boltyn just has setup turns. Like, you're already just going to have some turns where you're just like attacking with Red Illuminate, arsenaling, or like you're just like attacking with like a Beaming Bravado, charging 1 card, passing. Like, you just already are going to have some number of these cards because the deck just isn't all gas. Like, that's just not how it works. You are exchanging some amount of tempo at some times in order to do way over the top, like 4 card 20 turns later on consistently. And like, I have been having really consistent 4 card 20 turns like in the deck now. And Via the Valor helps enable that, because one of the biggest things that can go wrong in Boltyn, obviously, is you don't have a charge card in your hand. You draw 4 cards and you're like, oh, there's no charge cards here. I can't charge. Via the Valor makes it so that, like, since it's just an always source of charge sitting on the battlefield, you actually get to come down a little bit on charge cards, I think. Before I was at like, you have to play 30 to 33. Like, you have to. Your half of your deck must be charge cards in order to play Boltyn. And I do not play at least 30 anymore. Like, I'm below 30 charge cards now, and I've not had an issue.
Yeah. So that kind of is interesting because it potentially leaves space for like more of the powerful generics. I remember at our testing for Indianapolis, we were looking at Scar for a Scar and Enlightened Strike. I don't know if like those are back in your deck. They're not yellow, which makes them kind of awkward. So
I don't know if I want to talk about the spicy cards I put in my deck. I guess I kind of already leaked it in the Boltyn Discord. It's cash in. You play cash in. Everybody knows about it. It's fine. You play cash in.
It's a yellow. You can charge it after you use your gold.
It's a yellow. It's a charge card. It's a yellow. You use your gold, and it lets you play like 5 card Boltyn hands at its peak, and that's just very, very powerful, especially on Via the Vanguard turns, getting that extra charge or digging for your extra power cards and things like that. So I've been really happy with cash in so far. So
yeah, makes sense. Yeah, especially on B turns, that seems very strong.
Yeah, all but there's one thorn in my side. Oh, what are you about to say?
Thorn? I was ready to move on.
Well, that's where we're moving on. One thorn in my side. I was undefeated on Boltyn until I was like, Travis, load up a Lexi deck. Let me see if my new and improved Boltyn can beat this here no bullseye bracer Lexi deck you got going on. I got thrashed, dude. Oh my goodness. Those games were not, like I said, one game I tried a fatigue strategy, did not work, did not go on well. It might have been Travis's build uniquely because he was playing some weird cards that were like extra disruptive to my arsenal. Like he just had a lot of ways to generate inertia tokens basically. When I was trying to just like do like, because then they were like, well, what about like a more traditional like Saber's combo turn? You just wait for Lexi to have an off turn and then you combo her. And that plan didn't work well. So I'm back to the drawing board. We gotta figure out a good strategy into Lexi to at least not make it like, if I can get it to like in the 40% range, 30 for 40%, I think Boltyn could be a tier 1 hero. But until that happens, I think you kind of have to put him in tier 1.5, tier 2 still, because Lexi is still going to be a huge force in the metagame.
All right, I got a play pattern for you. Pitch a blue.
Sure.
Play a take flight. Charge any card. Then play Command and Conquer. That's the classic Boltyn answer to Lexi.
Yeah, it's not bad. There's still a lot of
Throw a
disruption and
rated
things
in
like
there
that
for
that
good
can happen.
measures.
Yeah. Obviously, the three Command and Conquer are going to be staples in the sideboard, regardless of what happens. The problem is that like you get three Command and Conquers, and like I guess like maybe sometimes if they codex and give you an extra one or something like that, they're still codexing you, and you're still pretty sad about it. Uh, I am looking for like another Command and Conquer esque card to go alongside of it. Copies like Command and Conquer's copies 4 through 6. I don't know what they are.
You
I
need
thought
some
about
breaking
Humble.
points for light heroes.
Yeah, Humble. There's that new card, Censor, the 1 for 5 that blocks 3. When it hits, you name a card. They can't play the name card until the end of their next turn. So you hit, and then you just name whatever their face-up card is in their arsenal. I don't know. It's okay. It's like some disruption, but I don't know if it's like impactful enough because they're still playing up. Like you took them from a 6 card hand to a 5 card hand. It's like okay, and it's
Maybe they can just
5, so it's still
they
cleaned
gotta
up
keep
of
the card.
yeah, 2-3 blocks. I don't know. Humble seemed interesting to me to try to trap him with a face down card. Um, and then I think the options start getting worse from there. I tried Infectious Host for like a minute. Was not happy with that card. Was not super thrilled to have it. I don't know. Maybe there's something out there. I just got to find it. But that's pretty much where I'm at with Boltyn at the moment. Just got to fix the Lexi matchup.
Fair. Lexi's
She's
not
still
as
good.
like diseasey as Azalea. Yeah. Yeah, Lexi losing Bullseye Bracer, it does make her weaker. How
It
did you
hurts.
feel when you saw
Yeah.
that ban?
I thought it was good. My initial impressions were positive. I definitely appreciate it over doing nothing. I think that was my worst case scenario. Was them like saying like, yeah, whatever, just play it out. Let Lexi be the tier 1 deck. Well, the Rangers deserve it. They deserve to be the tier 1 deck because I think Lexi's win rate and power level was problematic prior to this. I think she was like a half step above everything else in the format. I don't know that anything else in Dusk Till Dawn catches up like the heroes to be on the same power level as her. So I guess if you are of the opinion that you still want her to be like a super powerful, highly played deck at the top tables of tournaments, but not egregiously so, I think Bullseye Bracers was kind of like a smart targeted ban. So I actually give him a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that is their goal. I think they want Lexi to be a tier 1, at least tier 1.5 deck. I don't think they want her to be
Well, yeah,
bad, and I think
Brian said
that's
so as much as an article.
yeah, fair. And that's why they made the ban they did. So I don't know. Bullseye Bracer, it's kind of weird that it has splash damage into Azalea and Riptide as well, because especially Riptide didn't really need to be hit, but it's kind of hard to hit something from Lexi. And if you also want to hit Azalea and not touch Riptide, because Riptide's probably using most cards that both of them are using as well.
And 3 of a
Or
kind,
Riptide.
it would probably be too harsh because the other Rangers don't really play 3 of a kind, but like, yeah, it's probably too harsh. Probably lures are too much, you think?
Yeah, I think 3 of a kind is. I think it would have been fine if they banned 3 of a kind. I think Lexi would have been reasonably nerfed. I think she would have been probably tier 1.5, where she can show up when people aren't respecting her, and Ice Lexi's still going to be strong, where you have this ice disruption.
I would put her in the
Dagger takes.
pre-outsiders level, basically. Then at that point,
Yeah, I think Codex of Frailty plus Infecting Shot is a little bit better than 3 of a kind. Like, I'd rather have those 2 cards than 3 of a kind. But and you also get Premeditate too if you want it, or the other codexes, depending on what you want. But I do think that not banning 3 of a kind means Lexi's going to, or I guess just banning Bullseye Bracer means Lexi's going to stay a pretty strong force in the metagame. I do kind of like that it kind of makes Boltyn Shot a card that like you get a lot more value out of blocking, because a lot of the time before on their big turns, you would be like, well, if I block this Boltyn Shot, they're just going to Bullseye Bracer their other thing if they have another thing. So sometimes it'll be correct to block out the Boltyn Shot, and it'll save you a whole arrow of damage, which is cool, and not an interaction that seemed like it came up that often when you would block out the Boltyn Shot and they're like, okay, I'll Bullseye Bracer my arrow. You got me.
Yeah, agreed. So I think the splash damage to the free arcane kind of helps the heroes like Vynnset and Icelander, like the heroes that are looking to deal arcane damage a little bit. she now either has to just get the Spell Void in Shock Charmers or play Null Rune Gloves, which are way worse than Bullseye Bracers, obviously.
Yeah. They are definitely
So
way worse. But yeah,
that being said, I already
see.
expected Lexi to pivot to a heavier ice build anyways, and I don't know how much she cares about this then, but I don't know. Because Ice Lexi's a little bit happier to play Shock Charmers anyways.
Yeah, I think even the heavy ice decks still would prefer to have Bullseye Bracers, but yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see. I am excited for the new format. Like Levia, Boltyn, and Vynnset, or at least Levia and Boltyn, I think are going to be good. I think Vynnset's probably good. I think her floor is like, or a lot of her average turns. I shouldn't say floor because her floor is pretty bad. Her floor is just not drawing a blood deck card and dying to her own ability. But I think I'm fairly confident Boltyn and Levia are real decks now, which is exciting. Prism and Vynnset, we'll see. I think Vynnset probably will get there, and Prism will be like a hero that can prey on specific metagames. If the Wizards ever run Wild or Guardians, then Prism will be there. And the Herald plan might be good enough into the aggro decks if they're cutting poppers. Though I think with how strong Dromai is, I would be surprised to see anyone being like, yeah, I don't need poppers anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Dromai's definitely lurking in the depths. We'll have to see where she shakes out now. But yeah, exciting times. Always nice to have new formats. Always nice to have Boltyn being at least a potential viable deck. So excited to play with more of these cards and hopefully find some really solid decks for Battle Hardened Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks away. We'll see. Hopefully we can bring something spicy.
Yeah, hopefully we can get the cards.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about working on Levia for 2 weeks and then Levia's legendary card costing like $300 and or not even being available. That seems I don't know. I hope
I don't think Levia's specialization cards going to be $300, Michael. I don't think it'll be more expensive than Crown of Providence. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I hope I can get a Levia for like a good cheap price. I'm excited to work on Levia.
Okay.
All right.
Well, the next time you're buying a Levia legendary for $300, always remember, mind your manners.